Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160 in Earth 1610. I'm Zach, and joining me today is a man who has never seen the original Indiana Jones films, Johnny O.
Yep, that's true. Welcome back.
How you doing?
Pretty good. Yep, the only Indiana Jones film I've ever seen is The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which I think I've told you before.
Yeah, which is... I haven't
the
seen the newest one.
I know.
Probably the worst one. Dude, I heard you... I don't know if you heard me singing along to it, but I heard you when we first got in, listening to Face Down by the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus.
Yeah, dude, that's a jam.
On full volume.
That's not... Now, I will say, I didn't pick that song. I actually threw on Panic at the Disco. And then it just, gradually shuffled throughout the morning. And Face Down by the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus happened to be playing. But it is a jam. Is it the jam of the week? I don't know.
I mean, that's your call this week. I think I did the last one.
Okay.
This is going to sound so fake. This is going to sound like a lie, but I promise it's not. When you were playing that song, it reminded me of a dream that I had literally last night that I had kind of forgotten about, but then it just unlocked the memory. John, I had a dream that I decided putting gas in my car and paying for repairs was getting too expensive, and instead I bought a horse. Okay? And I'm riding this horse around my hometown. And I named him after the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus.
Really?
I don't even listen to that band, but I can just remember vaguely riding a horse named Red Jumpsuit Apparatus.
Dude, that is the type of stuff. This is going to sound so stupid, but one, I did not know who sung that song. And when it came on and I was listening to it, I was like, oh man, who sings this one? This one's pretty good. And I clicked my phone and I was like, oh yeah, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus. What a fun name. And then for you to have that dream, that either proves that we're just in a simulation, or that there has to be some sort of God that exists and he's just having fun with all of us.
Well, there you have it, folks. My stupid dream just proved God.
I mean, I do genuinely believe that though. Or when you have a thought about a TV show or something, a scene pops in your head and then you go home and that's the one that's on. That's just the good Lord, Zach.
Or the day that I was I wonder how old Carl Weathers is. And I Googled him and I saw that he was 77. And I'm yes, he's still with us. And then 8 hours later, they announced Carl Weathers dead at 77.
Oh my gosh, did that happen?
Yes, I think I mentioned it on the pod.
That is crazy.
What
oh my gosh.
Made me think of him the same day he died.
Dude, it's just electrical. This is going to sound so stupid. But it's just got to be electrical, synapses, firing in the universe. That, stuff does, get, time, it, passes. I don't fucking know, but, that has to be how that happens.
Weebly wobbly timey-wimey.
It's something like that.
Yeah, something is going on.
Ask Neil deGrasse Tyson. He'd have a better... What's his name?
I thought it was just Degrassi. I don't know. I don't follow him, but Degrassi is definitely the school that Drake got shot in.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh. This is going to be a good one.
What a start.
Wow. So is this just going to turn into is Zach's dream hour going to turn into a reoccurring thing on this pod? Yeah.
Episode 1. This is a podcast about comic books. Episode 65. This is the song of the week and Zach's dreams.
It is Final Four day also.
It is.
Yep. So boiler up. Purdue plays here in about 6 hours. For the listeners, when they're listening to this, Purdue will have played for about a week. But for us, they play in 6 hours. And Zach, you did a really good job predicting the score last week. I don't know if you even realized that or remembered it.
What? No.
You remember you predicted the score on the pod?
Now that you say it, what game was I even talking about?
The one last week to put them into the Final Four. And I don't remember what your score was, but I'm pretty sure it was 70-something to 60-something. And Purdue won 70-something to 60-something.
Well, there you go.
That's pretty good. So what do you have for us today against NC State?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'll probably say 70-something to 60-something. That's just always my range with basketball predictions.
That's a good prediction.
Yeah, it's like saying a football game will end 20-something to 30-something. It's like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nice. That gives me hope for the week. For the day.
Cool. I watched my first basketball game in a long time the other day. It was my alma mater, Indiana State Sycamores.
Oh my!
In the NIT championship,
my gosh,
they let me down so hard,
dude. For our listeners that don't follow NIT basketball or small town Indiana basketball, yeah, Indiana State, where Larry Bird went, was in the NIT championship.
And Zach Armour.
Yeah. And I think Larry Bird and Zach Armour both went there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know him, Larry.
And they were up 77-70 with about 2 minutes left. And Zach, I had to be somewhere at 9:30. And at about 9 o'clock, they went up 77-70. And I turned my computer off where I was watching the game and left to go to the thing that I had to be at. And when I got to the thing that I was at, they had lost the game 79-77. And I was just like, how did this happen? I mean, I still don't really know how it happened. I just watched the ESPN Gamecast. But I mean, you tell us, how did it happen?
Well, it was a disgrace to the game of basketball in the state of Indiana. Meth usage in Terre Haute, Indiana, which is already like 500 times the national average, probably spiked that night.
I remember from an ex-girlfriend in college that Terre Haute, Indiana is like the meth capital of the country.
Yeah, it's a actual serious problem.
Well, Larry Bird, yeah. I mean...
What?
We'll just leave it at that. Enough said, right?
Connect the dots, listeners.
Yeah.
Wow, this is not a thinking man's pod. I love it.
So what happened? What'd they do? How'd they blow this lead? Walk us through it.
Seton Hall just hit every shot, and ISU missed every shot within like 3 minutes. Like they were playing, they had the lead, and they were still taking like deep threes. And then it would just bounce off the rim, and Seton Hall would just run it back and nail one. And then we were fouling, and then on the very last play, you needed either 3 to win it or 2 to tie it. And he like double shot a 3 twice while he was tightly defended. And then a guy had a chance to tip it in, and he didn't.
Oh my gosh.
Just how you draw it up, John.
That is Indiana basketball right there.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Heartbreak.
No,
don't put this out into the world when Purdue's in the Final Four today.
That college is relevant on a national scale in basketball every 40 years. This was their chance. This was their Larry Bird moment. We got to wait another 40 years for this team to make some kind of championship and then lose in it.
Well, it is kind of funny though that we're like, this is their Larry Bird moment, and you know they tied the record for most wins in a season back for when Larry Bird and the Sycamores, you know, blah blah blah. So they would have broken the record had they won this game. But the reason it's funny,
the announcer said this would have tied that record.
Oh, would it have? Okay,
yeah.
Well, the reason it's funny is because Larry Bird and the Sycamores went to the championship game and
The
lost
real
to
one.
Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
And these Sycamores are in the NIT championship game, which is still great. But I mean, that means they are like the 69th best team in the country, not the second.
Right. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
pretty embarrassing. And
Yeah.
they had
well, it's still good. You know, they still had a great season. So
they had some Indianapolis boys on their team, and then Seton Hall's number one guy was also from Indianapolis. I think they said he was from
nice.
like Lawrence North, and
Oh, really?
yeah, he had like played against some of these guys in high school, so that was kind of cool.
That is cool. Well,
So for him, it's a great story.
Yeah.
He got to win the NIT championship in his hometown.
well,
for
it's
ISU,
still
it sucked.
it's still a good story for ISU. They still had a really good season, and they should be proud. And they're just kids at the end of the day.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want our intros to go too long because I know sometimes we do that. But
We're gonna do it anyway.
we're going to do it anyways. Are you guys doing anything for the big eclipse day that's coming up on Monday?
I took off work. My mom you would think it was like the biggest event she's ever lived through.
Dude. Well, it kind of is. It hasn't happened in like 900 years.
Well, no, it happened in 2017, and she went down to Kentucky to see like the center of everything down there. So she just witnessed this.
Okay. Oh, that's okay.
But
yeah,
she keeps
this
saying,
hasn't happened in Indiana. So Indiana's going through the path of totality, which means there's a total solar eclipse on Monday. And dude, the city is like going crazy. I mean, it's supposed to be like the most crowded thing in history. And I mean, it's nuts that we still have to go into school. Every other school in the city has it off, but
yeah, Shiloh's off. I'm taking off.
oh my gosh.
I saw someone said something like, do you know the Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon pairs up with Wizard of Oz thing?
Yep.
So kind of a reference to that, but not really. Someone was like, if you start Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon at exactly this time, the last line, the sun is eclipsed by the moon, will happen right at the moment of totality.
Oh, well, that's cool. I wouldn't have even known that there was a line in that song, but
Yeah.
but that's really cool.
Yep.
Okay, what were you saying about your mom?
Oh, just that she's going crazy about the eclipse. She literally bought a shirt that says like total solar eclipse 2024. She's got a
Oh my
stack
God,
of
dude, this is the most boomer stuff I've like ever heard.
she's got a stack of
And I say that because my parents are like psyched also out of their mind.
Oh yeah. She's got a stack of the eclipse glasses in her house. Like she has like 40 of them. I don't know what she's doing with all of them.
Well, I have like 30 pairs because like a year and a half ago when I learned that this was going to be happening, I was like, oh man, maybe I'll try to buy a lot and then sell them.
And now people are just giving them out.
Or just buy them all so like, you know, my like friends, if they sold out, my like friends and family would still have some, right?
So no one else can have them.
I was just trying to stock up.
You're just hoarding.
I was and yeah, and now I just have like 30 pairs of eclipse glasses. Yeah. Well, that's fun.
What
I'm
about
glad.
you? You said you're in school?
Yeah, I'm in school. We do have a half day, so I'll be home, you know,
By then.
and I'm not really planning on doing anything, just going out into my backyard, staring at the sun. I'll come back inside.
I like to imagine there's like one dude who lives in, off the grid, who's in the path of totality, who has no idea it's coming.
Dude, it makes me think, like, the earliest, like, humans, what did they think was happening when all of a sudden the sun just, like, went out, you know? I mean,
there had to have been, like, entire generations of civilizations that went blind, because how could you not look at it?
Oh my gosh, probably. Yeah, now that you think about it. But like stuff like that is probably also where they get like religious stuff, you know? Like
for sure.
Sun went out And then they were probably like, oh my God, please bring it back. And then it comes back and they're like, God.
We've angered the sun gods. Quick, sacrifice a virgin. And then 4 minutes later it comes back and they're like, well, that worked. I guess we got to keep doing that.
And we obviously know God doesn't exist because he brings the sun back. He exists because we think of music titles on the same days, you know?
Yeah, we're doing the same dumb shit they did back then, just differently.
Yeah.
For us, it's about red jumpsuit apparatus.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you have anything, you got any other crazy stuff for us?
Not at this moment.
Okay.
I think we gotta stop yapping and get to the Spider-Man of it all.
Let's get to it.
All right. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Every business says they're better. But the ones that earn and display the BBB seal back it up. It instantly identifies businesses that are committed to operating with integrity, honoring promises, and telling the truth. Makes you wonder why every business doesn't have it. So look for it, because it's looking out for you. That's why it's the sign of a better business. And find a better business anytime at bbb.org.
Okay, and we're back. And we are in Ultimate Spider-Man issue 101. And this is written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Mark Bagley, inked by Drew Hennessy, colored by Justin Ponzer, and lettered by Corey Petit. So, Carnage, if you remember from last episode, has just jumped through the Parker house front window and is attacking S.H.I.E.L.D. agents on the lawn. And I said they're S.H.I.E.L.D. agents because they kind of look like they're people wearing suits, but we find out quickly that I guess some of them aren't. Some of them are robots that are just made to look humanoid.
It looks like even most of them aren't. Like, pretty much all of them. I'm guessing all of them with the perfectly sphere heads are the robots.
Yeah, probably. And Fury calls the Tinkerer, who is just like at the Triskelion, watching the fight live through a broadcast in his Spider Slayer's eyes.
Was this a bad guy first? That's now working with S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah, we saw him very recently. He was the one who, what did he make? He made the Vulture's suit. And then they, like, showed up at his place, and he has all these weapons. And they're like, do you build stuff? And he's like, I tinker.
Oh, like
okay.
At the very, like he comes in at the very, very end.
Yes, he had like 2 pages. And Fury's like, okay, either I'm going to kill you or you work for us now.
Okay.
So this is the payoff of that. And Tinkerer tells all of this, he's like, Tinkerer, kill these things. And he's like, well, I don't know what this Carnage thing is. These things are meant to kill Spider-Man. So I'm going to have to like reset the AI on them so they figure out Carnage's weakness. And in the meantime, he's just kind of got manual control over them. And he has all of the Spider Slayers fire. And they're like stormtroopers. They pretty much all miss and instead just blast the Parker house. And so there's all these ray beams, energy beams, whatever, coming through the walls. And Peter is...
I want to, first of all, if there was a bunch of noise in the last, 30 seconds, sorry, that was Baby Billy, messing with stuff, and he knocked over my zero sugar monster, but luckily it didn't spill that much. Okay. And 2, I would have jumped in when you actually said this, but I was messing with that, but why is Fury building, a whole army of robots just to kill Spider-Man? What is his vendetta against Spider-Man? He's just a kid, and he's not that powerful, right? Fury deals with the biggest superheroes on the planet. I just don't see his obsession with this.
Yeah, it's pretty silly. Truly, it's there because the Spider Slayers were already a thing, and so Bendis is adapting all the stuff from the original comics in this run. So it's okay, what's... in our interpretation, why are we going to have Spider Slayers? Who's owning those?
So who created the Spider Slayers, originally?
In this?
Norman Osborn or something? No, in the original run.
Who was
Because
it?
like it makes sense if it was like Norman Osborn, right? He's like a villain against Spider-Man, but Nick Fury is a good guy. And it sure does seem like you're wasting a lot of resources on like Peter Parker, who is just like a high school kid. He hasn't shown any signs of like wanting to take over the world or anything.
Right. And it's not like Fury, doesn't already have, orbital rockets and helicarriers and the Ultimates.
Like we
working for
created
him.
specifically Peter Parker Slayers. Now they even say this is only for the DNA of this one person. Like
It's like if I wanted to kill you, instead of coming to your house with a gun, I come to your house with a gun that specifically is meant for you, John Opat.
And you come with like 100 of them.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's thorough. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So Peter's inside. These, energy blasts are like coming through the wall and he's holding Aunt May and shielding her with his body. And his dad tells him to get out of there. And Peter says, not without May. And Richard convinces Peter that since May's had some sort of attack, it might do her more harm if Peter flips her over his shoulder and starts swinging around. So Peter jumps outside to draw the fire away from her, and he lunges at Nick Fury, telling him to stop shooting and that his Aunt May needs medical attention. And Fury tells Peter he's under arrest, and Peter says, under arrest? Did you hear me? She's going to die. And Peter gets shot by a Spider Slayer's laser beam. And Fury stands over Peter with a gun pointed at him and says, I understand, kid, but you and your situation just became more than it's worth. Stay down. And Peter gets up, grabs Fury's throat, and says, you're killing my aunt, before getting lasered again. And Fury says, I'm sorry, kid. There's a lot more at stake. Now stay down. The next shot will paralyze you for good. And John,
he's like, he's not saying like, I'm sorry, kid. I have to do this. Stay down. He's like being a villain, like he's just not thinking clearly at all, or like how a good guy should be thinking here. Like,
yeah,
why is he doing this to Peter?
And I don't like how a lot of this issue is paced, because it's like something like this will happen and you'll kind of be like, wait, where's Carnage? What's going on with that? And then you'll see Carnage doing something in the background. But then, the main two characters of the scene are just having a casual conversation with each other, not paying any mind to whatever Carnage is doing.
And Fury is like ultra focused on Peter Parker in street clothes, who's like carrying his just had a heart attack aunt. And in the background, we can see Carnage just like causing chaos, ripping through Spider Slayers, and this is what Fury's focused on right now. It's just ridiculous.
And from
it's
one
just
panel,
Nick Fury being Nick Fury.
Yeah. And from one panel to the next, he's got Peter on the ground with his head turned, with his gun, to Peter's head, like executioner style. And then and he says, stay down. And then in the very next panel, Peter is standing with his hand around Nick Fury's throat. How did he turn around and grab you that fast? All you had to do was pull a trigger. It doesn't make sense. Suddenly, Fury's gun catches fire as someone off panel says, dude, leave the kid alone. And we see a big reveal of the Fantastic Four arriving at the scene.
Oh, thank God. I was so jazzed when they came in.
The real adults are here.
Yeah, that's like what it felt like. It's like, good. Somebody put Nick Fury in his place really quickly.
Yes. And Fury tells Reed Richards to take the FF and get out of there. And the Maker sees Reed and says, geekasm. And John, in my notes, I put the
Maker?
face.
Do you mean the Tinkerer? You said the Maker sees Reed.
Wow, yeah. Freudian slip. The Tinkerer sees Reed and says geekasm, and I put the green-faced sick emoji in my notes, because I was just like, that's That's gross. That's a gross word. And then also, this like supervillain is seeing what will end up being like the ultimate supervillain, and he's like idolizing him. It's kind of interesting, but wasn't intended that way.
Yeah. I really like Reed Richards. I was never a Reed Richards guy, but oh gosh, I hope you can't hear like someone's mowing their lawn outside. But
yeah,
oh man, well, sorry.
Don't they know we have a damn podcast going on?
I know. But like especially in this issue and this arrival right here, I just like it a lot. I'm like, oh man, I love this guy, and I love that he becomes a villain. This guy's got real character to him,
Yeah, he's if nothing else, a very interesting character.
Exactly. Yeah.
And while the FF argue with Fury about what he's doing to Peter, Carnage attacks Ben Grimm and throws him into the sky. And Johnny Storm shoots Carnage with fire, and it screams. And if it seems like I'm just jumping from one thing happens to another thing happens. That's how this is paced. This creative team can do really good visual storytelling and pace things where they make sense. And this is not that. This is not their A game.
Is it maybe like supposed to feel like that? I mean, isn't that what's kind of happening right now? Like Carnage just like exploded out of a girl and is like tearing up everything, right? And it happened at the same time that Fury and a million robots showed up, and then I kind of get what you're saying, that it does sort of feel like it's just like one panel of like people fighting and then something else happening and then something else. But I think that's like what it's supposed to feel like.
Right. But they chose to create this rushed and chaotic scene where a million things are happening at once. They could have told a different story that they were more capable of telling in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
I mean, I don't hate it. I feel like my notes is a lot of, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. There's no room to breathe. There's no time in between things. And that is almost more of a statement about Bendis's decompressed storytelling that he usually does, because this is how a lot of comics actually are. This is how comics used to be for decades and decades before compressed storytelling kind of took off.
Well, that's almost how like this whole run, when you put it like that, has felt, because it's just like one big thing and then another big thing and then another big thing, and then it almost feels like it could be like 2 or 3 different arcs. We could have an arc about Peter's dad coming back, and then an arc about spider clones, and then an arc about whatever else is going on. He tells Aunt May who he is, and instead all these big things, and instead it's just like one big arc that they're just throwing everything into.
That's what I'm saying. Typically the Bendis style would have been, the conversation with Aunt May is its own entire issue and it's double length or something like that.
Yeah.
And here, it's like an older style comic where, you tell an incredibly complex story with a lot of moving parts in like 20 panels or 20 pages. So Peter tries to tell the Fantastic Four to help his aunt and says she's in the house with his dad. And Reed says, "Your father? He died years ago." And Fury tells Reed again to stand down, and Sue uses her force field to run and deflect the Spider Slayer's blasts and run into the house, saying, "There's an old woman in trouble. What is the matter with you?" So let's dissect that.
What is the matter with him?
He has Peter. He pretty much has Peter in custody, and the Spider Slayers are on manual control by the Tinkerer. And the Tinkerer is still firing at Sue Storm.
At the good guys.
Because she's just running into the house to help an old lady who just had a heart attack.
Yeah. Fury's being like very spiteful.
Yes. And Reed asks, "And what's this now about Carnage?" and says, "Fascinating," as he starts to wrap himself around it.
And that's awesome. Because to me it seems like he very easily like takes care of the Carnage problem, and he just does. I mean, it's just awesome, you know.
Have you ever seen a dude that's just like a little off in a scary way, and he's like holding a venomous snake or a tarantula, and he's just letting it walk around his fingers and stuff, and he's just kind of looking at it? That's like what Reed is doing right here.
I don't even think he is. He's like this character in this right here, there's like not an ounce of, he's just like a scientist who, he is fascinated, right, by it, but I almost think he's saying it almost like sarcastically, how you'd see like Tony Stark say something like that before he just like immediately takes it down, you know. No, and that's what it feels like to me.
I think the key difference between
like he's
Tony
like talking
Stark...
to Carnage like it's a little kid. He's like, "Oh, fascinating," and just wraps it up, and it's like over.
No, I think the difference between Tony Stark and Reed Richards, this is kind of my own headcanon. This isn't something I've ever seen any Marvel creator say. I think Reed Richards is autistic. Like 100%. Like and it comes through in this run too. Like when he's like, "Hey, Johnny, I distilled my own pee into water. Drink this."
Yeah,
he's like, he doesn't have, social skills. He doesn't have like the sense of what other people are doing. He is hyper focused on his research and his sciences and stuff. Tony Stark seems the opposite. Tony Stark has great people skills. He's always picking up ladies. He's always saying something snappy in the boardroom. He's not, I mean, he's a genius, but he's not like obsessed with his work like Reed is, Tony Stark takes a day off and goes around town and goes on vacations and stuff. Reed Richards, his vacation is getting even deeper into his, sciences. So if Tony Stark says fascinating about something, I can see it the way you're saying. If Reed Richards says it, I don't think there's a bit of irony or sarcasm there. I think he is fascinated with the scientific implications of something.
You're probably right. He's like thinking about all of the science stuff immediately in his head when he sees it.
And we get that later in these issues in a great panel.
And I guess that especially comes through, from a couple issues ago when he's looking at the Peter Parker clone. And he's like licking his lips in delight because of how like cool he thinks it is.
Peter's like horrified and traumatized, and Reed is standing right next to him saying, "Wow, this is incredible. I wish I had made this."
Yeah.
So yeah, he's hugging Carnage, and Sue gets into the house and starts asking Richard Parker questions about what's happening to May. And even though he's a doctor, he doesn't have an answer to any of her questions and says he doesn't know what to do.
He just seems like a big sad sack to me.
Well, this is a tell. We'll see later where it leads.
Oh, okay.
And Sue lifts May up with a force field like a stretcher and brings her outside. And when they get outside, Reed is wrestling with Carnage while trying to ask it questions about where its mutation came from. And Sue says, "Honey, there's no time for an explanation now." And Reed tells her he was just stalling so she could do what she had to. No, he wasn't. He doesn't have to be talking to the Carnage while he's wrestling it. He can just hold it down and let her do her thing. He's genuinely asking it questions about its mutation because he's hoping it answers.
Yeah, he is. Did you read exactly what he said? He's like, are you an alien life? And if so, which genealogy are you? He says, if you could identify the source of your mutation, and it's obviously not like he's talking to a being that seems like it's going to talk back or understands these like scientific words.
One can hope.
He's like talking to a snarling like monster creature. And
Where do you come
What's
from?
your genealogy?
Yeah. And Sue tells Richard Parker, that's my boyfriend. He's a huge fan of yours. And Richard asks why. And Sue says, your original papers. Are you kidding? And that's another tell. And then in the next panel, Richard is touching his head like he's confused. And that's a tell. And Sue tells Peter she's going to take May to a hospital. And Johnny asks Peter, you want me to get you out of here too? Which is him saying, do you want me to, like, help you escape Nick Fury's custody? And he's saying this right in front of Nick Fury. And he does this a couple times, John. I don't know if you noticed, but Johnny's just always standing next to Peter, and he's like, hey, man, you want to get out of here?
Yeah, they're buds.
I love it.
Me too.
And Peter says no with a tear in his eye. And Tinkerer tells Fury he's got the right power signature on the red thing.
Okay, this is so stupid because, you know, they were first like, okay, these Spider Slayers, they're only built for Peter. So maybe that's why they're always attacking Peter when we're like, Carnage is going crazy in the background. Everything's focused on Peter. But then that is not the case because, like you said, it was shooting at Sue Storm when she's like running into the building. So they could have been shooting at Carnage. They just didn't know exactly if it would like kill him or hurt him or right. It was just like guessing kind of, but they were shooting at the other people. So.
Well, I think they were shooting at Carnage. It just was missing or wasn't doing very much, or it wasn't shown in these panels because, like I said, this issue's kind of a cluster.
Okay.
But yeah, so the way I understand it, the Spider Slayers usually work on their own AI. When Carnage jumped through the window and they were like, well, we weren't expecting this, they turned the AI off. They let it reboot so that it could figure out how to fight Carnage. And the Tinkerer was manually controlling them like a video game or like a drone.
Okay.
And so he was the one who was making it fire at Sue Storm.
Yeah.
But now the AI has rebooted and it's figured out Carnage's power signature. And Peter charges at Fury, smashing Spider Slayers as he goes. And Johnny helps by flaming some of them. And I really think this panel was just because Bagley wanted to draw something cool. Because it doesn't do anything. Fury tells the Tinkerer, do it, full power. And the robots all point their cannons at Reed, who's holding Carnage. And they all blast at once, which illuminates the whole neighborhood blue. And when the dust settles, Gwen is standing naked in the yard and promptly faints. And Peter is shocked, and Johnny and Ben are confused. And Johnny's like, it turned into a chick. What the heck? And Reed is talking to himself and scribbling down equations on a notepad. That's the moment where I said it comes back, that this is just how Reed works. Like,
well, good thing he's like, okay, you know. Fury didn't really.
Oh yeah, he shot up. He
could have been killed.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Fury
and
didn't
Reed's
know what was
not
going
even
to happen.
upset, or maybe he is. Maybe this is the moment he like is becoming a supervillain.
Also, where did he get a notepad and pen from?
Yeah, I don't know. Also. Never mind.
It's like when a cartoon character pulls a mallet out from behind their back, you know?
Yeah.
Also, I mean, I guess it makes sense that, like, no one transforms and keeps their clothes. You know, what are we doing?
It just feels like it's kind of an excuse to draw Gwen Stacy naked.
It's gross, you know? You got this teenage girl butt-ass naked on a front lawn surrounded by only men. And it'd be one thing if that was the only time it happens in these issues.
Yeah. It would be one thing. Or it might be two things.
But we do see someone like puts a... Well, I guess we don't. Never mind. I was going to say someone puts a blanket over her at least. They don't. She's just butt-ass naked, passed out on the grass. And Fury tells Peter, I'm sorry, kid. I have to take you in. Either I take you in or I take you out right here. It's your call.
Which is the stupidest thing. Dude, Peter did not cause any of this. Like, what is...
if you ask nicely, he might even be part of the solution.
Exactly. Like, as if Peter is the problem here. He randomly got cloned, which we still don't know how that happened. Because
any of us.
Because every time anyone goes to tell us a story about how it happened, they take too long to talk and something happens. And this just makes no sense that Fury would be like, kid, this is your fault, obviously. You're coming with me or I'm killing you.
He says, you don't get to be Spider-Man anymore. It's over. And Peter asks, what's going on? And Fury says, you're at the center of the biggest genetic disaster we've had since the Hulk. Now we have to clean it up, and that includes you. And Peter asks him what he did, and Fury says, you didn't do anything. It was your clones. And Peter looks at Fury in confusion.
So why are you getting on Peter?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
Peter looks at Fury in confusion with tears in his eyes as Fury says, sorry, kid, I truly am. Well, that's all right then.
He doesn't seem very sorry.
No. I'm sure that's cold comfort to Peter.
He's threatened to kill him like 6 times, and he's had a gun up to his head multiple times in the last 2 minutes.
And Peter's like, I don't care about any of that. Just get a medic to my aunt. And he's like, no. Back at Oscorp, evil Two-Faced Peter asks Mary Jane how she's feeling, and MJ says, what did you do to me? And evil Peter explains what the Oz formula is and says he put it in her. And he says he wanted to protect her, and now they can be together forever. And to her credit, she knows she's not talking to the real Peter and keeps saying, who are you? And he keeps insisting that he is Peter. And evil Peter tells her, you may want to calm down. And John, that suggestion demolishes any amount of control she was exerting on her feminine rage. And her clothes rip and she transforms into a giant red hairy goblin. And the issue ends.
So how much Peter do you think this guy is? Like, this isn't evil Peter. We probably shouldn't say that, right? Because he's not trying to be evil. Is he?
He's just messed up. He thinks he's helping.
Yeah, so what, we think his brain just probably didn't get cloned properly or something?
Yeah, I bet genetically he's just as much of a match of Peter as all the other clones are, because they were using probably the same specimens. But I think psychologically something went wrong.
And his face is messed up.
And that, yeah. It looks like it's got cigarette burns in it.
No, it doesn't. He's got half of a face. It does not look like cigarette burns. It's much, much worse than that.
Okay, I'm sorry. Cigar burns.
Okay.
Big fat Cubans.
It looks like a vat of acid was spilled on half of his face.
All right.
He's got no eyeball.
Big vat of acid expert over here.
Yeah. Okay, what's our rating system? Is it just me? I'm about to say the stupidest thing. Or does Goblin MJ have some curves to her? You know? I mean, I'll just say it.
All right, hear me out.
She's got a flowing head of hair.
Well, you know how when Gwen transformed naked, the smoke covered her bits? MJ's got some smoke covering her hoo-ha.
Goblin MJ.
Yeah, because theoretically, I guess she's just got a goblin hanging out.
God damn it, Zach.
But the boobs are fine. That's just pecs at this point. We can see that.
Oh my gosh.
It's almost
too much.
weirder that they censored it.
Dude, I don't think that they did. I did not think anything of that.
Are you serious?
I
They
mean,
went
now
out of their
that,
way to censor it.
Now that you mention that, it does make me think, oh, so was Norman Osborn always in underwear when we saw him? Because he didn't just have a big goblin Dr. Manhattan style, just like swinging about.
If he did, that would be the ultimate weakness for Peter to attack.
To exploit.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's our rating system?
Okay, hear me out. This is weird.
Okay.
But since it's issue 101,
Yep.
I think this is our only opportunity to use Dalmatians as our rating scale.
So out of 101 Dalmatians?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because we'll never get the chance again.
Okay. Can we make it out of 101 Goblin Dalmatians just to tie it into the issue? Okay.
Yeah. Listen, John, we've already established a dog can play basketball. The rules never explicitly say they can't. Who's to say they can't be Goblins. Dalmatians?
Yeah. Okay. This one and the next one were a little hard for me to rate. I'm gonna say I'll give it 77 Goblin Dalmatians out of 101. Because I don't know, I'm still a little like, this seems like a really silly arc to me, but I'm having some fun with it. You know, like, I like the Reed Richards stuff a lot. Every time he's on the page, that's probably the most interesting thing that's happening in this run for me. And along with like who started all this that they just are not telling us still. But it's fun getting the Fantastic Four in there, so it gets a boost for me.
Okay. I'm going to give this a 68 out of 101 Dalmatians. This is, to me, the most rushed and most cluttered issue of the Clone Saga so far. It just seems so poorly paced and unclear of what's happening. And you're right, the Reed Richard moments are a standout for me. But other than that...
Well, and the Johnny Storm moments are nice. You know, Sue Storm has a good moment. Even the big rock thing gets tossed like a million miles.
Yeah, that's true. I do like Johnny constantly, literally right next to like the head cop of the entire world, standing next to Peter like, hey, dude, I can bust you out of here any second. Just give the word.
Well, and I'm pretty sure maybe it happened at the beginning of the last issue, or maybe it happens in this issue we're about to read. But he's like, I only have 2 friends in the world. I'm not going to let you hurt one of them.
It's so sweet, but it also doesn't really line up with what we've seen so far in this series because they've met like twice.
Yeah, but they get along really well when they meet.
They do.
Don't they? Like they're buddies.
Yeah, they should be best friends. We just haven't gotten that on the page yet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. You got anything else for it?
Nope.
All right, moving on.
Okay, issue 102.
And John, I just got to say, this issue officially ties Bendis and Bagley with Lee and Kirby's record for most continuous issues together.
Nice. That's awesome. Now, I wish, I wonder if there's any Easter eggs in there about that. I don't know. I didn't see any.
I thought you were hinting at something, and I didn't see any either.
No, I was hoping you were going to come back with something that,
Well, now I'll look for it. I'll try and find something.
So this is written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Mark Bagley, inked by Drew Hennessy, colored by Justin Ponzer, and lettered by VC's Corey Petit. And Fury, Peter, and the Fantastic Four are all together on the lawn. Peter's in big handcuffs, and they're surrounded by spider slayers. And Reed and Johnny are pleading with Fury to uncuff Peter, saying he didn't do anything wrong, and this is an infringement on his civil rights. And Fury responds that he's the leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. and his job is to protect the world, so he can pretty much do whatever he wants. And Peter, with tears starting to come from his eyes, tells the Fantastic Four to let it go. It's over. And he just looks pretty defeated. But then... Yeah, Zach?
Nope, go on.
But then... Spider Lady swings in, and she kicks Fury, and she swings Peter out to safety, and they kind of swing to a rooftop, and then they hide there for a minute, and then
and she's quipping. She says, "Mr. Parker, your 4 o'clock is here."
She is. She's doing some good quipping for it, and they're swinging through the sky, and she's like, "Oh, nice night for it, huh?" And yep, she's very quippy. I noticed that also right away. And they hide out on the rooftop for a little bit, and then they kind of swing through the city to safety, and Peter's in his street clothes, and they're swinging with Spider Lady. And I really like a couple of these pictures, in particular on page, is that 6? On page 6, where they're swinging across the moon on the Jersey Turnpike. And then I think the next one where they're both sitting on top of the truck is also just a really good one.
Yeah, they like land on a box car that's going down the interstate, and that's where they chill to talk.
Yeah. There's probably a couple shots very similar to that in like the first Spider-Verse movie. Like, I'm pretty sure I sort of remember this.
It is very cinematic of them swinging by a full moon, because they do that also on page 4.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. It's a good little motif.
Yep. Boy, and the solar eclipse is coming up. Zach, if that doesn't tell you God exists, I just don't know what to say. Okay, just kidding. So, they're sitting on that boxcar, and they kind of start talking, and Peter asks who the woman is, and she pulls down her mask, revealing a Peter Parker face.
But a lady one.
And what do you think went through our Peter's head immediately? Do you think he was like, I'm a very hot chick? Or do you think he was like, who is this? This person sort of looks like me. What do you think he thought immediately when she pulled down her face? Give me your thoughts. If you saw a lady clone of yourself.
I don't know that I would. I don't know. Do you think you would recognize it?
I don't know if I would recognize myself. I've thought that before.
That's not anyone's first reaction. You know, the situation he's in is like one of one in fiction or reality.
Now, if I had just gone through some stuff where I met some clones of myself, and then a lady pulled down her face and it looked like me, I would probably be like, oh, this is probably a clone of me. You know, I feel like.
Do you think she does look like him?
Yeah, I think they look identical. When she pulled her face down, it's just his face with longer hair, you know, which I think they did on purpose. They like put both of their faces very close next to each other in a couple shots. So I think you are supposed to know immediately, oh, this is exactly Peter Parker's face.
I feel bad because the very first time I read this, I thought, is that supposed to be Kitty? And then you see on like the next panel, he's like, oh, you're me. But now that I look at it, I'm like, why did I ever think that was Kitty? Because she has his like kind of thick eyebrows, and he's kind of got like a widow's peak, and so does she.
You just wanted it to be Kitty.
Maybe.
But that does beg the question, where is Kitty during all of this? You know, you would think she'd be involved in some way.
Maybe that'll come up later.
Oh my gosh, what a tease. Okay, so Peter
also, kudos to you for calling this the very first time you saw her.
Did I say it's a Lady Peter?
Yeah.
It's called the Clone Saga.
Like immediately.
She's in a Spider-Man outfit.
I know.
And she showed up and she was quipping and she called him Tiger immediately, you know. But thanks, I'll take it. I'll take my props. So Peter asks her to explain what's going on, and she says that she and the Scorpion guy are clones, and they are going to find the others. And Peter asks if his father made her, and she says she will explain everything, and then she launches into a tale. And I just want people to explain what's going on. This is a big pet peeve of mine when we keep asking the same question and they keep launching into tales instead of just telling us the answer to the question they're being asked.
Well, you see, John, it all started when, and then something blows up and ends the sentence.
Like we've just already gotten that with his dad multiple times. I just want to know what's going on. So she says that she woke up like a month ago to Ben Reilly, who is the doctor that was working with Kurt Connors back in the Carnage issues.
Do you remember him from that?
Yes, I do remember him. Yep.
Yeah.
Because his name is Ben Reilly also. Who's
Yeah.
like clone Peter's name, but not in this story.
Yep. So Ben Reilly was a big deal in the 90s Clone Saga that this is like kind of riffing off of, except here he's black middle-aged lab assistant with no powers or real connection.
And it sounds like he's the one who made the clones.
Yep.
So,
and this is why I said the Clone Saga is like the end of the trilogy of like Venom and then Carnage, and then because without the Venom and Carnage arcs, Peter would have never gotten in contact with Kurt Connors, and then Ben Reilly wouldn't have got his blood.
Yeah. So Ben Reilly is telling her she's kind of waking up and it's kind of, you know, blurry because she's coming out of a sleep. And Ben Reilly is telling her exactly what they did. He says she's a replica of Peter Parker and she's the most successful clone yet. And Riley tells her that they're going to wipe her memory after this conversation. They just wanted to tell her this to see how she reacted to the news. And she's going to become CIA agent Jessica Drew, codename Spider-Woman. And Riley says that they're going to create an army of hundreds of Spider-Men to be trained or experimented on in hopes of recreating the super soldier serum. And I said Jessica Drew kind of passes back out as Riley finishes his villain monologue. And I think that this is like the same problem that Nick Fury had in the last one, which is like, why are our normal characters acting like such villains? You know, like...
You think Ben Reilly's a normal character?
Well, I think he was just a scientist, right? That was like experimenting. He was, you know, and now he's like doing big speeches about experimenting on subjects and, you know, basically like torturing people. We woke you up. We're just going to tell you all this and then wipe your memory. Like, this is so messed up, all of this stuff. And he's saying it like it's not.
I mean, I think it was messed up when he saw what Carnage did and the feds were like raiding the lab and he was like, oh, can I go get my stuff? And he just went in there and snuck a sample
that's right.
Peter's blood. Like, we already knew he wasn't a good guy.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And then theoretically, you know, he said when Kurt Connors went to jail, he had a get out of jail free card, which was Peter's blood. So I'm guessing that this means he probably bargained with like Nick Fury, right, to get out of jail with Peter's blood.
He made a deal with someone. We will find out who, but it was not Nick Fury.
Well, Nick Fury does this because he did it with the Tinkerer.
He does this kind of thing, but remember...
And it seems like someone shows up at the end of this issue that Fury has also made a deal with, probably, who is not the best of guy. So...
We'll get there.
Fury likes to do this type of stuff.
But there are other people who are like Fury, too.
Okay.
We'll get there.
So back on top of the truck on the New Jersey Turnpike, Jessica tells Peter that they never got a chance to, and based on where the last conversation left off, what she means is they never got a chance to like wipe her memory before Peter cuts her off saying, just give me a second. And Jessica is like, I'm kind of also having a meltdown over here. I've only been alive for a month and I don't know which memories are mine and which are yours. And then Peter finally snaps. All of the stuff that's been building up over the last day finally gets to him and he screams, why aren't I in a coma right now? Shouldn't my brain just give out on me? My dad, my aunt, Gwen, this. Who can take this much in one day? And Jessica Drew says, well, and then we cut back into her memories. And she's in front of a group of scientists who are praising her, saying, bravo, Jessica. To which Lady Peter tells them to stop calling her that because she thinks she's just Peter Parker,
John, what do you think the subtext of this character and her arc is? Does anything strike you?
I feel like you want me to say this is like a trans thing, but I won't lie to you. I did not think that one time until you just said that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't think about it at all.
Yeah.
I just thought it's a Lady Peter,
Well, yeah. She's in the wrong body. She's got memories and feelings of being a boy, and everyone's telling her what she is, and it feels very much to me like this was a trans story, as much as Bendis could tell it.
Okay. I mean, I can definitely see that. Went over my head. They didn't hit me over the head with it, so I just didn't get it, Zach.
Yeah. It's not preachy, but it's definitely there.
Yeah. So back in Jessica's memories, like I said, there's this group of scientists that are calling her Jessica, and she tells them to stop calling her that. But they tell her today is the day that she becomes Jessica Drew. And with the help of a psych team, it will be quick and painless. And then Cassandra Webb strolls in, and I think she looks just really stupid. I just always hate the way Madam Web looks. Ever since the animated series from back in the day, I've just been very off-put by the way she looks.
John, her web connects us all.
That's true. So she does have that going for her. And I also said at this point, I said, what is this comic? They're just like throwing every single thing that they can think of. Like, it feels like the writer's room was just like, okay, then who else can we have for the 100th episode, the 100th issue arc? And then, and then maybe Madam Web comes in. Yeah. And, oh man, that'll be cool.
Oh, and Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. This feels absolutely excessive. Like, there's no reason to say a character's name is Ben Reilly or Madam Web and then have them just be a different person than who they really are and it not even matter.
Oh, so is this not Madam Web? I figured that this was like a big super person in this universe that, has like mental powers or something. I don't know.
No, they're pretty much just
I don't know, because she's in one panel.
Right. They're doing the thing where they like point at something and they're like, huh? You guys remember that reference?
So just as she comes in, carnage bursts through the wall, and we hear the scientist say, "The Stacy experiment is loose," as Carnage destroys everything in the room and kills everyone. And I couldn't really tell what was happening here, but it looks like Jessica Drew kind of sneaks through just a door that is like propped open while all of the carnage is going on.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah. And she finds the rest of the spider clones in a dark room. And we see the three that we've already met. We see Half-Face Peter, Scorpion Peter, and we see Six-Arm Peter, who is actually Werewolf Peter. Or Wolfman Peter or something. And the scientists are like, okay, Peter, go back to your rooms. Nothing to see here. And then all of the Peters at once, except for Lady Peter, they're all like, something's happening. We have to save MJ. Come on, let's go save MJ. MJ's in trouble, guys. Let's go. And it feels like all of these Peters, like you said, they're like genetically probably perfect, but they are like very like not brain developed. So they can only think of like two things at a time, you know, or like all of their mental energy is just on like the strongest thing at the moment, you know?
They're like off-brand Spider-Man.
Yeah. But it also reminded me of the scene in Ant-Man Quantumania where there's all of the Scots in like the clone place, and then they're all like, Cassie's in trouble. We've got to go help Cassie, you know, and then they all work together and save the day. And I actually really like that scene. It makes me tear up, Zach.
Who could forget our favorite scene from our favorite Marvel movie?
I know. That's a good one. Oh, and then Wasp shows up and catches him. I actually do really like that scene. And it is my favorite movie. So Jessica Drew, we're back on the boxcar, and Jessica Drew says she tried to stop the clones from bothering MJ, but she just like didn't have her bearings about, because she had all these memories and she wasn't able to stop them. And then Peter is like, oh my gosh, so these clones, they got MJ? And she's like, yeah, I think so. And so they go off to find the clones and to try to save MJ. And Lady Peter kind of knows where that is because, I don't know, they probably talked about it before. So she knows that they're at the dilapidated Oscorp building because that's the first place her and Peter swing off to. I know that wasn't very well explained. Do you have anything, Zach?
And here, look, this is the last place I could think of that one of us in our delicate mental state might take MJ. So she's just kind of retracing her steps of like, what are places in Spider-Man's memory?
Yeah, okay. So, as they go into the Oscorp building, they hear a really loud growl and a crash, and they run through the building and they see this giant red hairy beast thing about to attack half-face Peter. And Six-Arm, Wolfman Peter, is just kind of laying defeated in the middle of the room. And Peter says, please tell me that isn't her, talking about MJ. And Zach, this was awesome. I really like what's about to happen. Jessica Drew Peter says, hold on. And we get a quick couple of panels of her just webbing up the Six-Arm Peter and like pulling him to them to safety. And I just love that. It's just a little moment that's like, I don't know, shows her heroism, you know?
Yeah. And that's kind of like her brother. Like, she
exactly
knows all of these clones from that facility.
Yeah. And MJ is going ballistic. She's trying to attack half-face Peter, and the Wolfman Peter wakes up and tells them that idiot, he did it. He injected MJ with Oz, and Goblin MJ is destroying everything. She's attacking everything, and Peter walks out to her and just calmly says, MJ, it's me. Please, please stop.
Real quick.
Yep.
I think we got him, because Wolfman Peter, you know, she saves him, and he wakes up, and he's talking to them and everything. He definitely got his neck snapped last issue. Or last episode for us.
Well, I do remember, I thought he was dead, but I didn't remember what happened. But, I mean, I don't think we got him. He's a superhero, you know.
He doesn't need a neck.
When I saw he was alive, I was like, oh, cool. He wasn't dead. I thought he died, you know. But I wasn't like, but I don't know, Zach. Maybe we did get him, you know. Has Peter Parker's neck ever been snapped in canon and he came back?
I'll research and get back to you.
Okay. So Peter walks out and he says, MJ, it's me. Please, please stop. And Mary Jane's goblin creature looks all sad at him. She's got big puppy dog eyes. and her goblin body, and then she transforms back into MJ, and she's naked, just like Gwen was. And now it really feels like this was just an excuse to draw both of those characters naked. It kind of felt like that when it happened to Gwen, but then when it happened here, I was like, okay, guys, come on. This is both, you know?
I kind of want to make a sound effect to put in the pod of where I just like have like a reverberating like voice of God, and like you hear thunder crash, and I just go, nude teenage transformation. Because I feel like they do it enough in these issues, but I'm not going to put the work into that.
Has it happened more?
It happened to Gwen and it happened to MJ right here. And I think there, by the grace of God, we didn't get one for Jessica, because they could have so easily had her wake up nude as like a science experiment.
That is true. So that shows a lot of restraint.
Yeah, good on you guys.
So half-faced Peter sees
and
this
is where, sorry, this is where I'm like, oh, well, at least they covered her up with a blanket. Jessica finds a blanket somewhere and covers up MJ because she's, naked and passive. That's the other thing. These guys are sickos. Not only are they having these teenage girls, like, just randomly appear naked, but then they're like, and then they passed out helpless on the ground. Shut the up.
So Peter and Half-Faced Peter are looking down at MJ, and Half-Faced Peter sees this as a huge success. He's like, see, now she can protect herself. And that's when our Peter cold clocks him across his messed up face. And as he's yelling at Half-Faced Peter, this is where, like Zach says, Lady Peter is covering up MJ. Which, I don't know, we probably could read into that a little bit, that there's something about the fact that, like, this is another girl that's doing this, that it's like nobody else kind of thought to cover her up. But then, like, the other woman in the situation does think to cover her up. And so Peter's yelling at Half-Faced Peter, how did you do that? Where did you even get Oz from? And then they turn and they see the three main villains of this issue. Nick Fury, Dr. Octopus, and the Maker, Reed Richards, standing there with some Spider Slayers behind them. And Doc Ock says, his father, asking, like, where did he get the Oz from? And he says, his father. And
he says, from me, his father.
No, he doesn't say from me. Oh, he does say from me. Okay. I actually thought he just said his father. So I was like, so is Dr. Octopus his father? Or do we mean Peter's father? Because they're like clones. So, okay.
He's saying, like, I am his father. Like, I am his maker.
So we'll just take some more shit and we'll just throw it against the wall. Because wouldn't it be cool if Dr. Octopus came back also?
Hey, where's Norman Osborn? We haven't seen him in a while.
Dude,
you think we've got some room for him?
That was the first thing. When I saw this, I was like, Norman Osborn's coming back next issue. I just already know it. We've been in Oscorp this whole time, and it's all Goblin stuff, and now Doc Ock is coming back, and I'm just sure Osborn's coming back at some point, which is fine. I like Norman Osborn, I won't care one way or the other if he does.
Okay, but what we really need is, if there's like 2 more issues of this arc, we need at least one of them to explain how Kingpin was behind all this.
See, I'd love that. That would be awesome to just have a menacing Kingpin issue, how he planned all of this, and he's doing it all for Vanessa
somehow.
What'd you think?
I liked this one better than the last one.
So did I. I put this out of 10 pieces of against the wall. And I actually graded it pretty highly because, like I said, although I do think this is a pretty goofy run, I'm starting to have some good fun with it. And I like Jessica Drew a lot. And are we calling, what, do we have something we should call her? Is she Lady Peter or Jessica Drew, or are both things, she asked the scientists not to call her that. So
yeah,
but that's also kind of
on it.
She is, so
I have always called her
I don't want to
Jessica
dead
Drew.
name this this character.
I'll tell you this, just a minor spoiler, but later, she leans into it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I call her Ultimate Jessica Drew.
Okay. Well, I like her a lot in this, I still like it in the Fantastic Four. Boy, man, it's really goofy. I just want to know what's happening. But I gave it 8 out of 10 pieces of shit against the wall.
Yeah, I'm right there with you with the same score and for the same reasons. I love her. And this isn't the first time we've seen her, but this kind of feels like her first issue because she makes sense now. She's not just someone who shows up mysteriously and has a cool suit and then dips. We know what her deal is, and she's gotten a lot of characterization already in a very short amount of time.
What's going to be interesting, because as soon as they start giving these characters like characterization and you start to like them, well, then you start thinking like, well, what's going to happen to her? What's going to happen to all of these Peter Parker clones? Are we just going to live in a universe that has 4 Peter Parkers out there now? I mean, I'm guessing half-face Peter Parker will probably die. But man, I like Wolfman Peter Parker too.
Yeah, he's cool. I like him.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. Okay.
So far, how do you like the Clone Saga?
I like parts of it. I don't like this stuff that's happening with his dad at all. And I just wish we were getting more answers. Like, I wish we hadn't been asked the same thing about Gwen 4 times that hasn't been explained, or the same thing about like who made these clones, that just isn't getting answered. Like, if you're not gonna answer the questions, don't ask them so many times. It's your choice. They're writing the books,
I think they are answering them, just not at the speed we would like.
Yeah, they haven't answered them yet. I have no doubt that we will get answers to them.
Right. Which, the really frustrating thing...
Man, I really hope Peter's dad is not real. That's gonna be something that annoys me if it is, because he's such a goober, I think.
He's kind of ditzy.
He is.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
and he's like a dumbass too. He's like working for the bad guys. He's doing bad things, and he's just like oblivious about it. And then he's put in a crisis, and he totally forgets everything that he should do as a doctor. And it's just like, dude, you're just not a reliable person here.
Yeah. Yep. I couldn't agree more. And to your point about we're getting all these questions that, aren't being answered as fast as we'd like. So one of the reasons why this is my favorite comic run and why it's still a beloved comic run so long after it ended is in just about everything else that Marvel or DC does, you get things like this. You get little breadcrumbs, where it's like, oh, they've been asking this question for 10 issues now. Where's it leading to? And then the story gets canceled, or the whole universe resets, or the creative team changes and the story just gets dropped, or there was never any plan from the beginning of where it was going to lead, and it just kind of meanders until it fizzles out. The thing that I love about Ultimate Spider-Man is there's almost always a payoff for something that they mention, because it's like the same forces steering the ship the entire time. So even for arcs that you don't love everything about, I almost have to give them some credit, because it's like, okay, you set out to answer this question and you did it. Do I love the answer? No. But I've gotten so accustomed in other, comic books to being invested in that answer and then just never getting it because of, forces beyond people's control. Yeah.
Yeah. I see exactly what you're saying. So,
It's better to get it's better to get like a pretty unsatisfying answer than to just never get the answer at all.
100%. Yeah.
And a lot of the times the answers are satisfying. A lot of times, these stories are good. Maybe they're not always like 10 out of 10 great, but it's like consistently good for long enough that it, nothing else does that.
Yeah. And even these issues that aren't the greatest ones we've read, like I said, I think they're still really fun. And they still got, 75% and 80% from me. So, like, they're still good issues.
Yeah. I said I was so excited to get into the Clone Saga. Do I think the Clone Saga is, like, high art? Or there's, like, a lot of really intelligent things to dissect there? Not really. But
it's just
it
like it's a 100th issue, like, fun run, you know?
There's no better word for it than fun. This series that had maybe been getting a little stale.
This is No Way Home right here.
Yeah. It's breathing some life back into the book.
Okay, so do we have anything else Spider-Man related? Oh, okay. I kind of thought of something really quickly, but we can talk about it in a second.
I think I know what it is. Is it Agent Spider related?
No.
Oh, okay.
What's that?
Well, that's what everyone's talking about right now. Have you seen the last episode of Invincible?
Oh, that is what I was going to say. Is that Agent Spider? Yeah, that is
Yes.
what I was going to talk about. Yeah.
That was great. I love that.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay, well, what did you think of Invincible? That's what I was going to say. So are we done on Ultimate Spider-Man for the week?
For this week. So
For this
next
week.
Yeah, you don't get off that easy. So next week we'll be looking at issues 103 and 104.
And is that the wrap up of the Clone Saga?
I think it goes to 107.
Okay. So we might have to do 3 issues in one of these.
I read ahead the other night. The very last issue of it is a pretty good like epilogue. So and then the arc after it has an odd number of issues. So I think we're going to do an episode that wraps up the Clone Saga and kicks off the next one.
Okay.
Yep. And now we're done with Spider-Man. I know you could just not wait to be done with that.
What are you talking about? Okay, so you watched the Invincible finale?
Yeah, I loved it.
What did you think?
I loved it. It made me want to read the Invincible comics, which I haven't
Me too.
done.
Yeah, that's what... Anytime I watch any of the breakdowns on that show, it makes me think that the comics are probably really good.
Yeah.
And it seems like the show is following them pretty closely. Maybe not in the same order, but like the same storylines.
It's so smart, and I thought I didn't care for Robert Kirkman that much as a comic creator because I read The Walking Dead because I watched The Walking Dead, but I didn't love The Walking Dead. You know what I mean? Like it's such a dark story, and that's not always like what I'm looking for. That it was a downer, to read, and then I didn't love Marvel Zombies. And so I knew him as like the zombie guy.
The zombie, yeah.
And then he makes Invincible, and that is more of like he's a good writer, but Invincible is finally him writing something in the style of what I like to read. So
Yeah.
I need to pick it up. And apparently the show has been pretty faithful to the comics so far.
Yeah, that's what I've heard also. Yeah, it was pretty good. I'm bummed we have to wait so long because in that show, I think the most interesting thing that's going on is all of the stuff with the Viltrumites and, Alan the Alien and basically anytime like J. Jonah Jameson is on screen. And
okay,
it felt
I gotta give my roses to Alan the Alien because I don't like Seth Rogen at all. I've never found him funny, but he's like the perfect voice for Alan, and I get so excited every time Alan's on screen. I love that dude.
I think that this is 2 weeks in a row on the pod that you've said that exact same thing.
Oh, for real?
Which is good. Give Seth Rogen his flowers.
I totally forgot saying that.
Or maybe you just like said that to me or something. I don't know. Or maybe somebody else said that to me, but I have now heard that twice from someone that they didn't really like Seth Rogen, but they liked him in that.
It was probably me, and I forgot saying it.
But it's just a bummer because they took that long break for a couple months, and it almost felt like, okay, when it comes back, we're going to get the storyline of Nolan with the Viltrumites, and we didn't really. We're going to get that next season, you know?
No, I think...
Yeah.
I did myself a disservice, and I kind of looked up spoilers online of where it's going, but the Viltrum Wars is like the big, massive plot that the entire series is going to show. That's like whatever the final season of Invincible is going to be. You're going to have the stuff building and building and building, and then it's going to wrap up there.
I am like terrible about delayed gratification. No,
that's why we didn't laugh at a pyramid scheme, folks.
That's why we did it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, damn it.
This guy could have been at the top by now.
But I just want to see Nolan and the Coalition of Planets and Mark. I just want to like see them all together again, you know. Give it to me.
Yeah. Such a good show. But then obviously
it is really good.
They had a rip-off Spider-Man because they were supposed to use the real Spider-Man, but they don't have the rights to it, so they made Agent Spider. And what was it, Professor Squid or something instead of Dr. Octopus?
I think that is what it was, yeah, Professor Squid.
It was silly.
That was pretty good. As soon as I saw that, I was like, gotta mention this on the pod. Spider-Man's an Invincible. And I guess there is during that storyline, in the comics, when the guy is sending him through portals, you do see you don't see Spider-Man, but you see like a red hand from like off panel when he swings it, when he flies into a dimension, and it like says something, and then when he flies back out of the dimension, you see like webbing attached to him. So it's the same thing, right?
Well, and he met Batman, but they couldn't call it Batman.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. And he was sitting around a campfire, presumably with like Walking Dead survivors. And I think he went to the Walking Dead
zombie universe. Yeah.
At one point, yeah. A lot of Robert Kirkman Easter eggs. Yeah, yep. I think I decided I like Invincible a lot better than The Boys.
Oh, really?
Because
no, I still am definitely not there, but
I mean, The Boys is good, but it also kind of feels like it has like, what if Invincible got mixed with like the darkness that I don't love about like The Walking Dead, mixed with like just shock value, you know?
Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
I don't know. I can deal with like, you know, I mean, I can deal with gore and sadness and, you know, some very adult stories or whatever, but when that becomes the point, you lose me. And I think Invincible does a good balance.
Yeah. My one issue with Invincible, this finale, is sometimes I just don't like when the heroes beat themselves up so badly for making the correct decision. You know, like, there is nothing wrong with Mark killing that guy at all. He deserved it. He was trying to kill him, and he like was going to kill his mom and blah blah. You know, like,
it would have gone on forever.
Killing him is a very natural response there, and then he just like beats himself up about it, and it's like, dude, I don't know.
You weren't there. I wanted him to die.
Yeah, that's normal. You should have. So that's kind of my only thing. And I even watched some interview, and they're like, he's gonna with one of the creators, and they're like, you know, this is something that Mark's gonna carry with him, you know, forever. And it's like, why? He should get over it so quickly. You know, have one conversation with your mom, and you should be over it, because you'll realize that you made the right decision. You know, she'll be like, remember when he threw that knife at my head? Like, remember when he tossed your brother across the room like a rag doll? And he'll be like, oh yeah, I probably needed to kill that guy.
Yeah, that would have not ended well if he was still around.
Yeah.
But also, how psychotic would it be if he had killed him and was covered in his blood and then just got up and started just like whistling? Like that would have, there's an element of like remorse that he needs to feel just for it to seem grounded.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I guess we don't want him to be 100% okay with his actions either.
I mean, that would be interesting in the sense of like, is he becoming Nolan? But I don't think that's the story they want to tell.
Yeah. Okay, what else do we have? What else happened this week?
I got nothing.
I've got nothing either. Another one in the books, Zach.
Yep. Love it.
Boiler up. 70 something to 60 something.
Nah, I'm not going to say that because I don't really care. I know you went to IU. I like IU, and so I don't like Purdue.
Oh my gosh, get over it, hater. Okay, well, I'll put a score prediction in because I was thinking about it earlier. I'm going to say 77 to 61. Boilers take it. Boilers take it fairly easily. I think it's a really good matchup for. I'm putting it on the pod so everyone can listen and either think, and they'll know I was either really right about this or really wrong, because I think that this should be a fairly easy matchup for Purdue. Edie's just going to dominate, hopefully.
Yeah. Sorry, I only have the capacity to root for one Indiana team a week, and I already used it on ISU.
That's fair. Okay. Well, thank you to Ian Hickey for the music and Alyssa Seaman for our artwork. And thank you all for listening and leaving a review or a comment. You can find us, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else you find podcasts. And you can come and chat with us and leave us some comments on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, First Read Ultimate Spider-Man Podcast. See you next week.
See ya.